right, you guys, filing by hand. We all do it, but there's some things that we could tweak just a little bit to make your life easier. So I'm going to show you a few things or a few challenges or mistakes that a lot of people tend to make that they might not even realize that they're making with their hand file. First things first, anytime you get a brand new file, this might be old news to you, but if it's not, make sure you're doing it either way, okay? First thing you want to make sure that you're doing is taking off those sharp edges of the file. We talk about this all the time, but still people tend to forget that there is a sharp edge. So take an old file, run it right across the top of your new file, okay? Don't use a brand new file. You don't want to waste one. But just use an old file across the top and just kind of angle it on the side, angle it on the other side, okay? And then I always like to run my finger right across the top just to make sure that if it's still sharp, I'm gonna feel that so that I don't end up cutting my client, okay? Now what you wanna make sure you're not doing is not angling it too much. A lot of times I'll see people and they'll run their file kind of flat across. That's actually going to take off some of that filing edge that you need, okay? So when you're taking off that edge, just keep your old file parallel to your new file. Okay, same thing on that other side. I like to go flat across the top and then just a slight angle on one side, slight angle on the other. That way you're going to be all ready to file on your client and you're not going to end up cutting their skin, okay? All right, so that is our first and main thing that we want to talk about today. Always make sure that you're seasoning your files. Okay? After that, we've got a bunch of different grits. Now, a lot of times, especially for new people starting out, they're not sure which grit to use and what does that number actually mean. Okay, so let's talk about that number. What does that number of your file actually mean? Well, what that really is basically in a square inch of your file, that's how many grits or bumps, if you will, are in that square inch of the file. So say in a 100 grit file, so in a square 100-inch file, you're gonna get 100 bumps, okay? If you go to a 240, in that same square inch of that file, there's basically double the number of grits or bumps, okay? So in order to fit more in there, they have to be smaller or finer. So that's gonna kind of help you remember, because when I was in school, I could never remember. Is it higher is finer, higher is coarser? I couldn't remember. But if you think about the number of bumps in that square inch, that's going to tell you your grit, okay? So again, a higher number is going to be finer, a lower number is going to be coarser, okay? So keep that in mind when you're choosing your files, okay? All right, so generally we've got kind of the most common grits in the nail business are 100, 150, 180, and 240, okay? So when you're working on a natural nail, if you're just filing and shaping a natural nail, doing a manicure, generally speaking, a 240 is a really good grit to use. Sometimes maybe even up to 180 if your client's nails are really strong and hard nails, but generally on just a natural nail, a 240 for shaping is gonna be your best bet, okay? When you're starting to get into artificial nails, that's when you're gonna get into the 180, 150, and 100, okay? Those are gonna be a little bit more coarse. They're gonna be able to take down bulk of your product a little bit better, okay? If you are working, say you've got maybe you put on a little bit too much extra product and you really need to take that down and you're not using an electric file, you could use that 100 grit file. Okay, that's going to take down your product a little bit faster and easier. Again, if you're using the electric file, you're probably not going to need that 100 grit, but if you're somebody who still doesn't use the electric file, that 100 grit is going to be a little bit more of your friend. Okay, when you're doing a little bit more of your refining, or if you've already used your electric file and you just need to kind of refine a little bit more, take down just a little bit more bulk, that 150 or even to the 180 if you've done a really good job with your e-file will work. Kind of our standard here at Young Nails is our 150. I personally use this for all of my enhancements, my acrylics, my hard gels, that's my personal favorite file to use because I feel like it's kind of it's a good file because it's going to work with everything. Okay. So again, then you've got your 180, which is a little bit finer. So if you just need to do a little bit of refining, that's going to work really good for you. Okay. So just understanding what your grits mean and what to use when is going to be your big help. Okay. If you need to get into really refining or smoothing the nail, that's where we have our buffers. So we actually have a 240 file buffer combo. So it's got the file on one side. So if you are, say you're just shaping a natural nail, okay, you can go through, you can use that 240 side, shape that natural nail, and then flip over and use that buffer to smooth out that edge. Or if you're just going to smooth that natural nail, that buffer is going to work really nice on that. Okay, so it's just going to help to get little frayed edges, but it's nice because it has the file on one side, the buffer on the other. Okay, so it's just going to be really quick and easy. You're not going to have to file and then put your file down and grab another buffer. It's just all in one. Okay, so knowing what grit to use, when to use it, on what to use it is going to be a good help. Okay, all right, so next thing we want to talk about, this is something that I actually did when I was doing a lot of my filing when I first started out, and I didn't even realize that I was doing it. What I'm talking about is what I call whipping your file. Okay, when you're filing, you want to make sure that you're keeping in contact on your sidewalls. Okay, so I'm holding my file, I've got a good grip on my file, I'm supporting my file from the back, I'm filing, and what you tend to do is on your last stroke, you whip the file off. Okay, so you're filing and you whip, filing, whip. Okay, what you want to make sure that you're doing rather than whipping is file, stop. Okay, now it seems like a minor detail, but what happens is every time you whip that file off at the end, you're actually going to be taking a small little extra spot off of the end. So when you file and whip, that's going to shave off just that little bit extra off the end. So if you notice, I actually started with a square nail. Okay, this is going to be a very minor detail. So there's that tiny little space. If I was trying to do a square nail and I whip my file, it's going to take off that tiny little edge and leave, it's going to be more tapered, but if I was going for a square nail, I didn't want that taper. Okay, so make sure that when you're filing your sides, you file and stop. Don't give it that extra whip at the end. Okay, that's actually something that when you turn the hand around, so if I'm looking at the nails from my client's perspective, a lot of times my nails will be lopsided from one side to the other if I do that whip, because it's going to, again, take off more from one side. Okay, so make sure when you file, just file, stop, file, stop. Don't do that extra whip at the end. Okay, okay. Number 4. This is again something that I didn't realize that I was doing when I started filing. And what this is filing with your wrist rather than your arm. Okay? If you're somebody who you want to be doing nails for 20 years and you're filing with your wrist, that's going to put a lot of unnecessary wear and tear on your wrist and actually up into your elbow and into your shoulder. Okay? So make sure as you're filing, okay, if you're filing over the surface, make sure that you're bending from your elbow and that you're using your whole arm and you're keeping your wrist straight. Okay, so as you're filing, file over the surface using your whole arm, okay, rather than filing with your wrist. Okay. Over repeated use of just your wrist, it's hard for me to even try to do that, okay, but even doing things like this, that repeated motion is what's going to start to wear on your wrist. You're going to start to end up with a sore hand, sore wrist. By the end of the day, you won't even want to be doing nails if you're overusing and overworking that wrist. Okay, so make sure, again, keep your wrist straight, use your elbow, use your whole arm. Okay, So again, keeping your hand and your arm straight rather than flicking your wrist. Okay. Here is, so it's not necessarily filing, but it has to do with filing, okay? Checking all of your angles on your nail. So when you're finished and you feel like your nail is all done, you've shaped it perfectly, you've got everything shaped here, and you think it looks perfect, check it, okay? I'm going to show you a couple of different ways to check it. Because as you're looking at the nail from this direction, you're going to see things that you don't from other directions. So you want to make sure that you're looking from every single direction possible so that if you see a lump or bump, you can fix it, okay? So first things first, look straight at that nail, okay? Look at that nail. Does it look straight? Do your sidewalls look straight? Is everything looking straight and even from where you're looking straight on, okay? The next thing you want to look is down the barrel. So I'm looking straight down the C curve. Okay? So this is the view that you want to see. You want to see everything that's over the surface this way from the free edge all the way back to the cuticle. And something that you can do is actually to rock that finger down a little bit so that you can see again all the way back to that cuticle area. Okay, so as you're looking, rock it, and then you're going to be able to see the whole length. If there's anything that looks uneven, fix it from this direction. So maybe there's a high spot here. I'm looking straight down the barrel of that nail, and I can come through and I can touch up from that direction. Okay? So just to make sure everything is smooth and even. Okay? Now, we've looked straight at the nail, we've looked down the barrel of it. Next thing I'm going to do is look from my sides. So I'm going to look from my sides and I'm going to look at the arch of the nail. I'm going to look at my cuticle area. The cuticle area should be nice and thin. That free edge should be nice and thin and tapered, but then your highest point should be up into that arch area, okay? You want to make sure, now that I've done all my filing, you want to make sure that you have that really nice arch, okay? Now, this is going to seem redundant, but you're actually going to turn that hand and look from the opposite side. Things are going to look different from that other side. Your arch may seem like it's in a different place from this side. So from this angle, go through and fix what you need to fix, okay? We've looked straight down the barrel, we've looked from both sides, we've looked straight on the nail. Here's the thing that people tend to forget. Your clients, when they look at their nails, they look at them from this view. You're looking at them from the other view, okay? So what you want to do is you actually want to turn that client's hand around and look at them, look at their nails how they would look at their nails. So if I'm the client, I'm looking at my nails from this direction. Turn that hand around so that you can see exactly what she's seeing, okay? This is a great way to check your shaping. Make sure that it's not lopsided from one side to the other, and you can clean that shape up. Okay? So clean that up. Now, here's kind of the tricky thing. Sometimes clients are going to fight you on this, but try to just have them relax their hand and then actually look backwards down the barrel. Okay, so we're looking backwards down the barrel. So we're looking from the cuticle towards the free edge. Okay? Now again, that is going to give us an indication of any last little lumps or bumps. And again, we're going to fix from that direction. So whatever direction you're looking at the nail, fix from that direction. Okay? So I am just going to do some last customizing, making sure everything is smooth and even. Now, as I'm working kind of around my sides, before when we did our shaping, we did our sidewalls, we filed straight and flat. So we have kind of edges on the sides. So as I'm looking from this direction, instead of just filing flat, I'm going to kind of curve my file around so that it takes out that edge that we filed in on our sidewalls. Okay? So again, I'm going to curve around. So around the edge of that nail, around the edge of the nail. Okay? So that way you're going to get that really nice tapered sides, and it's not gonna look wide on your sides, okay? Okay, so again, we've looked straight at the nail, we've looked down the barrel of the nail, left side, right side, we've turned that nail around and looked exactly from our client's perspective. At that point, all of your lumps and bumps should be gone, and then you can go into finishing and top coating your nail. Okay. So again, you guys, some of these tricks, they seem really quick and easy, but they're really easy to correct, okay? Little things like this are really gonna make a big difference. Flicking your wrist like that, that's gonna, if you stop doing that, that's gonna help you keep a longer career. Taking off those sharp edges of your files, you're not gonna worry about cutting your clients. So little tricks that are gonna really just make a big difference in your career.
We've got endless amounts of videos, so do not stop now. Click, watch, keep that going, and don't forget to give us one of these.